In 1180 AD, off the coast of Norway, a bishop named Hans Egede watched something rise out of the ocean that he could not explain. He was on a ship. The water around him went completely still. Then something came up from below. Not fast, slowly. The way a continent moves. It had arms, each one longer than the ship itself. Its body sat so high above the waterline that the sailors couldn't see where it ended and the sky began. The men on deck dropped to their knees. Some of them prayed. Some of them ran below. Egede stood there and watched it sink back into the water. He drew it in his journal that night. He labeled it simply, the Kraken. And for 700 years, every scientist who read that account said the same thing. He was lying. He was confused. He was at sea too long. He was wrong. In 1857, a Danish scientist named Japetus Steenstrup looked at a strange object that had washed ashore on a beach in the Bahamas. It was a beak, not from any bird, from something that lived in the ocean. It was the size of a dinner plate. He calculated the animal it belonged to would have to be at least 50 feet long. The scientific community told him he was insane. In 2004, Japanese researchers Tsunemi Kubodera and Kyoichi Mori did something nobody had ever done before. They dropped a camera into the darkness of the North Pacific, 3,000 feet below the surface, and waited. What came back changed everything. The Kraken was real. It had always been real, and it was only the beginning. The ocean covers 71% of this planet. We have mapped less than 25% of it. The deepest point, the Challenger Deep, in the Mariana Trench, sits nearly 7 miles below the surface. We have sent humans to the moon 6 times. We have sent humans to the bottom of the Mariana Trench exactly twice. Think about that. The most alien environment on Earth is right here, on Earth. And for thousands of years, the people who lived closest to it, the sailors, the fishermen, the coastal civilizations, kept telling us what was down there. We kept calling them crazy. We were wrong every single time. Let's go back further. Further than Norway. Further than any written record. The ancient Greeks had a creature they called Scylla. Homer described it in the Odyssey and written around 800 BCE as a monster with 6 heads, each on a long serpentine neck that lived in a narrow strait and snatched sailors directly off their ships. For 2,000 years, this was mythology, a metaphor, a story to explain the dangers of the sea. In 1930, fishermen working in the Strait of Messina, the exact strait Homer described, began pulling up something strange in their nets. A creature with a long, flexible neck. Multiple grasping appendages. Eyes the size of dinner plates. It was a giant squid. The same creature Egede had seen. The same creature that had been terrorizing sailors for thousands of years across every ocean on Earth. Homer wasn't writing mythology. Homer was writing a field report. Then there is the Norse world serpent, Jormungandr. In Norse mythology, the ocean itself was encircled by a serpent so vast that it could wrap around the entire Earth and bite its own tail. The Norse called it the Midgard serpent. Every Viking who sailed the open ocean believed it was down there beneath them. Waiting. Scientists dismissed this for centuries as pure fantasy, a primitive culture's attempt to explain the terrifying infinity of the ocean. And then in 1997, a fisherman off the coast of New Zealand pulled something onto his boat that he couldn't identify. It was 25 feet long. It had a body like a ribbon, completely flat, silver with a red dorsal fin running its entire length. It moved through the water in an undulating wave motion, like a serpent, like something that could easily be mistaken from a ship for a creature of impossible size. It was an oarfish. They can grow to 50 feet. They have been found up to 56 feet long. They go deeper than almost any other fish on the planet. They come to the surface only when they are dying, which means for thousands of years, sailors were seeing them at the surface, enormous, silver, serpentine, writhing, and drawing exactly what they saw. The Midgard serpent was real, it just had a different name. But nothing in the entire history of sea monster mythology compares to the Leviathan. The Leviathan appears in the book of Job, in the Bible, written somewhere between the 7th and 4th century BCE. It is described as a creature of the deep that no weapon can pierce. That breathes fire. That makes the ocean boil when it moves. That has been on Earth since before humans existed. Ancient Hebrew texts describe it as the ruler of all sea creatures, a primordial monster that existed before the world was fully formed. Islamic tradition calls it Bahamut, so enormous that all the oceans of the world sit on its back like a drop of water on a scale. Ancient Mesopotamian texts describe Tiamat, the original sea dragon, the chaos monster, which the world itself was made. Every ancient civilization on Earth that lived near the ocean had a version of the same creature. The oldest, the largest, the one that was there before everything else. In 1835, a fossil was discovered in Belgium. It was a jawbone. The jawbone was over 4 feet long. It belonged to a marine reptile that lived 66 million years ago. Scientists named it Mosasaurus. It was 50 feet long. It had no natural predators. It could crush a great white shark in its jaws like paper. It ruled every ocean on Earth for 20 million years. Scientists later discovered that mosasaur fossils had been found by ancient cultures for thousands of years, before modern paleontology existed. The Chinese called them dragon bones and ground them into medicine. The ancient Greeks found them along coastlines and built entire mythologies around them. The creatures they were finding were real. They had lived here. They had ruled here. And in the deepest trenches of the ocean, places we have never fully explored. The descendants of those ancient lineages are still alive. The frilled shark, unchanged for 80 million years. A living fossil that looks exactly like every sea serpent ever drawn. The goblin shark, the barrel-eye fish, the siphonophore, a colonial organism that can stretch to 150 feet in length. Longer than a blue whale, the largest animal ever recorded on this planet. And we only discovered it in 2020. Here is what nobody tells you. The ocean does not give up its secrets easily. It is not like space, where we can point telescopes at distant galaxies and gather light from billions of years ago. The ocean absorbs light completely below 1,000 feet. Below 3,000 feet, it is completely, totally, permanently dark. The pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is 1,000 times the pressure at sea level. It would crush a human body instantly. The cameras we send down last hours before the pressure destroys them. And in those hours, in those brief windows where we have actually seen what lives down there, we have found things that should not exist. Creatures that produce their own light, animals that survive without oxygen, things with no eyes that can detect a single photon of bioluminescence from half a mile away. Life that has evolved in complete isolation from everything on the surface of this planet for millions of years. Every time we look, we find something that rewrites the rules, every single time. The ancient sailors knew. They were out there on wooden boats with no engines and no sonar, drifting over 36,000 feet of darkness. They felt the ocean move beneath them in ways that had no explanation. They saw things breach the surface that had no name. They drew what they saw. They told their children. Their children told their children. And the stories survived. The Kraken, Jormungandr, Scylla, Leviathan, Bahamut, Tiamat, carried across thousands of years and dozens of civilizations because they were not stories. They were warnings. They were field notes from people who were closer to the truth than any scientist who dismissed them. We have explored 5% of the ocean. In that 5%, we have found the giant squid, the oarfish, the frilled shark, the siphonophore, creatures that glow, creatures that crush, creatures that have lived unchanged since before the dinosaurs. The ancient world looked into the ocean and saw monsters. We looked at the ancient world and saw mythology. They were right, we were wrong. And 95% of the ocean is still down there. Still dark. Still unexplored. Still full of whatever it was that made every sailor who ever lived afraid to look over the side of the boat at night. We don't know what's down there. We have never known. And the ocean has absolutely no reason to tell us.